but this is all based on the number 9, what Marco Rodin's been going on about for 40 years, vortex-based mass. And Malcolm came in at the very beginning of this, and he said, in the Bible, they say, God meted out creation, with the hills and the valleys by the span of his hand. And, a span is 9 inches.
Welcome to the Mark Attwood Show, Adventures in the Cosmic Suit. It is Saturday the 13th of July in the middle of crazy time. Let's talk today. I want to talk today about free energy. In the middle of the spiritual war, I always put a little bit of time aside to look at free energy. I've been fascinated by the idea of free energy since I was a kid. I remember in the 70s and 80s in the schoolyard, we used to talk about water-powered engines and stuff like that. And we knew then that people were being murdered because they created things that were against the oil industry. In fact, I remember one science lesson in 1979 when we were given a whole class on the fact that oil was running out, and by 1990 that we would be in destitution for the lack of this supposedly limited resource. I don't think it is a limited resource. And then as time went by, we started to discover things like, or people like Nikola Tesla, who I think he put a patent out in 1898, which was for the propulsion of a mechanical vehicle. And that led to a disputed story, which I believe is probably true, that in 1931, he presented a car to the automotive industry that relied upon energy from cosmic rays and had 12 valves in it. And being the owner of a purple ray machine, I believe that that's true too. And then there's the story of Stanley Meyer, the famous one, who in 1998, I think, was in a restaurant with his brother and 2 members of the automotive industry because he had created an engine that worked on water, which was well documented. And I think the story goes that he got given a glass of cranberry juice and then suddenly stood up going, and ran out into the car park, and his last words were, "They poisoned me," to his brother. Is that true? I think it is. And then, of course, there's Tartaria. You've only got to walk around any city, really, and see cathedrals that are stunning and beyond belief in their architecture, comparable to the architecture of the pyramids, really, in many ways. And once you understand the word cathedral is derived from cathode, Catholicism, cathode, electricity, ether, these buildings become far more interesting. But what is free energy real? Because it's certainly going to be part of our future, in my opinion. And there are people still around doing, not letting go of this torch. And I think those people are amazing. And I came across a channel recently called the Alchemical Science with a chap called Jordan down in Australia. And he what is an alchemical scientist? What is that? What do you think that is? And he knows stuff. He knows more than me, which is great, because that's why I have this channel, to talk to people who know more than me. And he describes himself as a student of Malcolm Bendel, who has created a thing called the Thunderbolt Generator, which is really interesting. But and these guys that do these builds of engines that have vastly greater efficiency than the engines we're used to call themselves plasmoid engineers. But what is a plasmoid engineer? In the light of the fact that the whole EV vehicle thing is falling apart in front of our faces, thank God, I thought it'd be a good idea to get Jordan on to talk about this. Hello, Jordan.
Hello, Mark.
Great to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, we might have a small time delay between speaking, so if I talk over you, that's why. But do you want to introduce yourself to my audience and tell me what you're all about, please?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about the poor internet in Australia. So yeah, I'm Jordan. I'm an alchemist who has a YouTube channel, as you mentioned, Alchemical Science, where we delve into the stranger corners of science, and particularly this topic of, I guess, what people call free energy. But of course, energy is free um, in all respects. So it's just about how do we harness it appropriately, I guess. That's
Is.
about me, really. Yeah, I'm a farmer. I should say a little bit more.
Yeah,
You know,
come on, try
I
harder.
grow vegetables. Yeah, I began to study particularly the work of Malcolm Mendel, as you mentioned, and his Thunderstorm Generator, and I've kind of, I guess, probably got known to the public through that because a lot of people were seeking answers on it after Randall Carlson famously outed it on Joe Rogan, and that whole thing happened. And then there was kind of nothing, just silence for a bit, and then I started covering Malcolm's work quite heavily. So that's probably what most people would know me for. Also, maybe promoting a little bit of the work of Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project and Bob Greenyer, and also Marco Roden, Vortex-based maths, who's also a teacher of mine.
Are you spiritually protected? Are you wearing the armor of God? Are you prepared against the principalities of darkness that currently wreak havoc in our world? Spiritual warfare is a very real thing. Weapons of Mass Protection is the explosive and practical 5-star best-selling book from authors Abby Wynn and Mark Atwood, who both agree that humanity is in the midst of the biggest spiritual awakening in human history. If you feel like things ain't what they seem, if you feel you are under attack, get your weapons ready now. Weapons of Mass Protection. Practical tools for spiritual warfare. Out now.
So where should we start? Should we start with the Thunderstorm Generator? Because that is getting quite a bit of attention. And as usual, with anything to do with energy, generates a lot of negative and positive press at the same time, because they do come out to attack you, don't they?
Yeah, it's polarizing. I mean, not so much the invention itself, believe it or not, but more the science behind it. You know, at this stage, like, I think the biggest question. Well, I should introduce the invention first. Hey, so the Thunderstorm Generator is it's phase 1 of Malcolm Bendel's inventions that he came out with a couple years ago, that he'd been working on for at least 10 years, doing prototypes in the Maldives and in Australia and other places, but obviously a lifetime of work studying Walter Russell, Nikola Tesla, built on the shoulders of giants, as he says, on a lot of Randall's work on the cosmic stuff as well, with the system of mathematics that he studies, happens to be what Malcolm is using for his calculations for his inventions. But at any rate, Thunderstorm Generator, it confuses people whether it's a free energy device or not, because Malcolm has invented and patented, which those patents are available, another device that is a free energy device directly. But so why the Thunderstorm Generator? It's a retrofit for internal combustion engines and coal power plants, smokestacks, anything that produces carbon, potentially nuclear. I don't think that's actually been tried, but the science is there to support that it can be done. It generates ball lightning, or what Malcolm calls plasmoids, which was termed by Winston Bostick a long time ago. There's been a lot of different names for these exotic vacuum objects, ball lightning. Plasmoids seem to be the most common ones that are used, but it generates this through water bubble cavitation by pulling up just ionized air through water, imploding these bubbles, just using the vacuum and release cycles of the engine's pistons, essentially, to do this process. Pulls it into like a double setup of spheres, which everyone might have seen. If you're watching this podcast, the 2 metal spheres connected by a pipe, and then there's a nested set inside that as well. And so essentially, like, there's 2 phases of this process. You're generating the ball lightning, the plasmoids, which are these little cavitated bubbles, which form essentially like toroidal, hyperboloidal, like hourglass shaped. So these two opposing vortexes. It's a electromagnetic field essentially, you know, or I like to use magnetodielectric just to differentiate, because we say electricity and then we've got electric fields, and it just gets a little confusing. So I think Proteus Steinmetz's term is probably more appropriate to use. But you're forming this conjugate stable plasma field essentially. So it's plasma, but it's structured plasma, which means it'll keep this stable form between two opposing vortexes. You have a 0 point and a plane of equilibrium at the center, where matter can be disassociated by essentially these small plasma structures, and then it can be reformed into other elements on the other side. So transmutation process essentially, and then you're just replicating that in a larger way in this last part of the machine, the Thunderstorm Generator, the Vajra, alternatively called, which was the lightning weapon of Lord Indra, and you see Zeus holding it in the statues and stuff as well. It's actually all over the world in a lot of different cultures. I've had people reach out from nearly like every religion and culture saying they've found some form of this geometry, these two spheres with the connection in between, and you can see it represented on cathedrals and temples and all sorts as well. So there's something about this with the flow of energy, but you're essentially creating a thunderstorm, like replicating form and function of nature. So sending a cold stream of plasmoids and water vapors up in a clockwise imploding vortex, which is the natural flow that it will take. You can look into Walter Russell's, so you may have done, but your audience can look into Walter Russell's stuff to kind of see. He describes that quite prolifically in the Universal One, and Malcolm does the same. But you get this contracting vortex, and then this is happening on the inside pipe of these two nested pipes and spheres, and the spheres are there to establish the angle and the direction of the flow. So it gives the right, essentially, arch form for the vapors and the plasmoids to flow. And then you've got this opposing hot exhaust stream. So we're using the existing infrastructure essentially. Like, this is what I'm getting to is, why create this device? It can transmute the exhaust gases, which blows apart this bullshit carbon narrative, obviously, which is helpful. It also gets around all the regulatory requirements. So, there was a guy running a power station who came and saw us at the summit, and I think, he can only produce X amount of kilowatts per day, or whatever, volume or scale he's producing it on. And obviously with this, if he retrofits it, he can produce as much as he likes because he's got the capability to do that. He's just not able to. So this could solve a lot of wider issues by getting around regulatory requirements, and also, in cities where there genuinely are pollution issues, because they are there. We've got to think of India, China, places like this. Then we can remediate the carbon and essentially just produce oxygen, nitrogen, other elements, because they form on the inside of the Thunderstorm Generator. Bob Granier describes a stepwise transmutation process, and he's got like the isotope proton counts and everything, pretty much showing how these elements are formed, from like sulfur and silica and amorphous carbon and all sorts of stuff. So I guess the 2 points of the Thunderstorm Generator are that, number one, we can use our existing infrastructure and possibly not cause any further trouble, because, as you say, you just get knocked off if you produce something that moves the world forward too quickly. I believe the automobile lobby have a rule that you can't produce over 40% engine efficiency. So, of course, the Thunderstorm Generator only produces, 20% or 30%. So it's a little under that. We'll see what other people's produce when it gets replicated more in the future. However, there is an increase in fuel efficiency as well, so that's a positive thing. But the point is mainly to teach this science and to introduce these ideas such as ball lightning, plasmoids, this idea that we can harness nature essentially by replicating the form and function of things like a thunderstorm, where you've just got a very small differential in temperature and pressure, and you can put that in a machine and do something with it. And the way it's all essentially done is through geometry and resonance. So it's a musical instrument, this device, which we're retrofitting to a motor, which, I mean, an engine is to some extent a musical instrument. You know, all of your chambers are sized, your pistons are sized, the stroke, you know, it's just everything is actually to do with timing, geometry, frequency. So it's an extension of that principle. But you know, essentially you'll be able to utilize the full burn and transmute any waste products into whatever you want. Oxygen, primarily in this case.
Well, that's fantastic, and I know some of my viewers will be going. So I'm gonna because when you're working with these terms every day, it's quite easy to understand. But we need to unpack it just a little bit. I think there's a lot of things you brought up.
Yeah.
The first
Let's
thing I want to do, well, the first thing I want to do is just show people a bit of the Thunderstorm demonstrations that have gone on. You can see the two balls that you're talking about, bottom right of this picture. That's right, isn't it? There.
Yeah. So that's where the Thunderstorm is formed. That's what we're calling the Vajra, or the Thunderstorm Generator part of the unit.
Why is it called the Vajra?
So yeah, there's a whole legend in the Vedic texts about Indra. The you know, he's a demigod who rules heaven and controls the weather and such. And he made this plea to Lord Vishnu that he could get a weapon to defeat the demons who were kind of overtaking Earth at that time. And some sage Maharaj Dadichi ended up offering his bones up, and they forged this this two-sphered device essentially that could shoot lightning out of it. And then it's kind of cropped up in all these other cultures as well. Like, you know, Malcolm shows Zeus holding it in several poses where he's got these two opposing vortexes in his hand like this, and it always shot lightning out. Essentially all of the lightning deities, you know, would use this weapon. It's been described in other contexts as well.
Well, I mean, Zeus is famous for the lightning bolts, and so is Thor. So
yeah, that's what Bob Grenier calls the Thunderstorm Generator. He's affectionately called his models Thor after that particular one.
Yeah, well, that's funny because Thor's popped up 3 times this morning for me. Very, very serendipitous. So
Indeed.
this particular demonstration here is from you filmed at the Cosmic Summit. Is that in the United States?
It was in North Carolina last month.
Only last month, okay. And so, I mean, I'll put a link to this on your channel so people can go deeper into it. But can you explain what was happening at this demonstration and what the outcome was? Yeah,
sure. So we attended this summit. I got invited as an independent investigator. I am a student of Malcolm's, but I am independent. You know, I just come at this in my own way, and he never filters anything I say or anything. You know, it's I just learn a lot from him. So I went along. Malcolm was there. Bob Grenier was there. A couple of other investigators. Probably a couple hundred people came to see it demonstrated live, and got to do the smell test, which is, you know, sometimes the best way to believe is to just come and smell the thing.
I saw that.
They bought these. We bought these. Or Malcolm bought these 2 engines along. One was just a control engine that had no Thunderstorm generator attached. One had the Thunderstorm generator attached. Ran the control unit. You know, didn't encourage people to huff it, but everyone could smell the fumes from quite some way away. And then ran the one with the Thunderstorm generator attached, and it actually didn't work. Essentially the bubbler and the ionizer unit didn't function at all. There was some blockage in the pipe.
Was this because of sabotage? Because I heard that
it was.
I was put into a room and the room wasn't locked overnight, and somebody went in and fiddled with it. Is that right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I experienced a little bit of that, and but at least I can now back Malcolm up and say that he's not paranoid. That shit really happens. And there was 3 points of sabotage on the machine where essentially it actually worked. So
that's what I'm saying.
I probably need to get this out. So
because he said it's working, even though the bubbler's
it
not
worked
working.
just fine. And that's essentially because if you run it for a couple hours minimum, but if you run it longer, it can even have a more long-lasting effect. But you can essentially condition the spheres. So, like, plasmoids are static electricity, essentially. We don't fully understand how electricity works, but I mean, on the standard model, I think Malcolm actually does. But essentially, they've annealed the spheres. So, like, iron has a cubic structure, on the atomic scale.
Did you say annealed?
Yeah. So don't ask me to describe this process, but essentially they're de-stressing the metal. They're de-stressing it so that it's all of the cubes are facing kind of directly to the center of the sphere. So it's quite a complex process done by George Lush, he's an aerospace engineer who's been working on this. I mean, they do annealing for Boeing and BMW and NASA and all sorts. So he's been the one working on these. So they've got them to to a really low level of stress in the metal, where all of the cubes, on an atomic scale, are essentially facing all to the center of the device. The plasmoids will stay in the cubic structure in this lattice of iron, essentially, like Malcolm says. And it's just it sounds childish, but it's a great way to describe it, that plasmoid, if you put it in the middle of a perfect cube, it's just there in ecstasy and it just won't leave. Like, it's about geometry, right? Like, and it's like, if you've ever just done like a cymatics experiment or something with, magnetism, and, you just see things move into these cohesive patterns, and you just go, why do they want to do that? Because it's just that perfect spot where it finds its spot and it's like, I want to stay here. And so essentially that's what happens. And that wasn't new information. Like, that's something I spoke about on my channel at least kind of 6-7 months ago. And Bob Green has spoken about it multiple times because a few people have accused me of, you just made that up as I didn't. It's there. It's in Malcolm's notes that he released 3 years ago. We can condition the spheres, which is a great thing, because it essentially means that we can charge these units up potentially as they're improved, and then run them for, months or a year, and then just be able to connect them up to a bubbler just to recharge the plasmoids, and then it still does the work without any of this extra setup attached, which is the bubbler and the ionizer. But at any rate, they didn't work. So we were like time limited. At some point, the effect would have ran out and we would have had a non-working machine. So it was great that we did manage to get 2 days worth of trials and even an extra test in with the units, and the results were just fine. But the sabotage, so Malcolm and George Lush took it apart afterwards, and we got a little bit of that on film. I came down and had a look, and I was quite pissed off. They'd flipped around there's like a little block between the carburetor and the input to the engine, where they're putting the input to the device, and they'd flipped around like the little pipe in there, so it was facing the wrong direction. It was just disturbing the flow. There's potentially even something stuffed in the pipe, because it was still, even after that was fixed, the bubbler was still, it could have just been a pressure leak, but I don't know, the seals were done pretty well. Like, they used a big globs of, synthetic crap around the seals, and they would have been hard to get through, but one was filed down a little on the bottom as well. So there could have been another pinhole leak, which can cause, like I say, the test worked, but it was a good attempt at messing with it, which was, it was just kind of startling to be there and know that happens. Of course, we tried to get security to lock it up, and I experienced that as well. They just absolutely refused. So it was all very questionable.
Well, may I?
We did it though. Everyone saw it.
No, that's brilliant. But I'm going to make a suggestion. You can get spy cameras very cheaply from AliExpress. And you plant them around the room next time.
Sorry, I've just frozen up.
Sorry, am I still here? Hello, Jordan. You still there? Yeah. Well, I just paused it for a second because of the signal. I said you can get very cheap spy cameras and just dot them around the room next time.
Look, there's a lot of things we could have done, but I can't describe how it is to come into this circumstance, kind of not really think you're going to get messed with, and then all this stuff just goes, like, you just think there is security there, there is cameras in the hotel, there is a lock on the door, and you just think these things are going to get done. You're jet lagged, you're speaking in the morning, then you got to do 3 tests. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we could have done all this stuff, and I understand, but we shouldn't have had to, frankly. Like, yeah.
Dude, I toured America. we got death threats, we got witches, warlocks, we got banana up, we had a RV that was
Rough
sabotaged
place.
3 or 4 times. Yeah, they're very good at it. But great that it continued. And I'm just gonna pause on one of those thoughts for the viewers, because not sure everybody understands what cymatics are. So I'm just going to show a very brief explanation of cymatics for people. I'll put a link to that in the show notes, because it is worth going into cymatics if you've never come across it before. And of course, this is not only fundamental to, I mean, it's one of the keys to the universe, isn't it? I mean, that's why I've just bought a sound healing bed, because we're trying to get frequency into the cells, the cellular level for healing. There's another thing that you brought. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said cool.
Yeah, cool. It is cool. Yeah, this Plasmoids ball lightning thing personally resonates with me, because my great grandfather used to tell me a story about being chased by ball lightning when he was young, and I've often, you know, and he never lied to me, and he described it in great detail, and it stuck with me for years, because it was just one of those really exciting stories that your great granddad tells you. And I wondered for a long time whether the ball lightning was other entities, you know, because if you look at Chris Everard's work on Enigma TV, I don't know if you've ever seen that work. He's got a lot of footage on there of what looked like ball lightning, small white lights doing the crop circles in, you know, that been filmed. And it does fascinate me how all these things are connected. So the ball lightning side of it and the plasmoid side of it is really interesting, because one of the common negative comments, shall we say, about the Thunderbolt generator is that it's like an afterburner. But like you said, you've got an aerospace engineer working on this, working on the metal. And for those watching, if you do go and watch Jordan's videos and you look at the comments and you see that kind of thing, an afterburner in a jet engine is basically when you inject fuel into the hot exhaust, and then it just gives it that extra boost of energy. But the readings that you get point to a different story, don't they?
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess if you were just going off the gas analysis alone, you could say, you know, that it could be that. But it just discounts all of the work that Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project's done on this, and Bob Grenier, and you know, I spoke to Bob just the other day, and I said, well, you know, you said it was categorically ball lightning, and he said, well, yeah, it is. So, I mean, you know, he's standing by that statement, because there's these 4 quadrillion microspheres for a start. These have never been found in any other device in that quantity. However, they are found in all cavitation devices. And it's, well, that was the point where Bob started saying this is categorically ball lightning, because it is. You know, there's no doubt on that. I mean, there's been the carbon tests done where they've found, you know, carbon that's supposed to be 30,000 years old. You know, I don't know how you explain that with, you know, it just being an afterburner, and also that doesn't explain how it works, to be honest. You know, do we just stick a bit of metal on there? You know, they're using all sorts of special catalysts that have a chemical explanation in, you know, in a catalytic converter. That's not in this. You know, it's just a bit of steel going on the end. Why does it work for a period after being charged? You know, why does water vapor do that? Does hydrogen do that? You know, does it condition something? So to me, it's a bit of a bloody stupid argument. Malcolm's going to come on the channel and talk about it. I'm going to post, you know, the vortex test, you know, which is a little contentious that they did, because I mean, it doesn't matter, you know, it doesn't actually affect anything to do with the technology really, except maybe more people might think it's an afterburner, which, you know, obviously personally, I don't want to obfuscate what this is, like I want people to understand the science behind it. I think that's, to be honest, the point of the invention and why this is a transition technology, is because it is teaching us principles that Nikola Tesla understood and we should have had 120 years ago. Stanley Meyer understood. He was using a plasmoid spark plug. Walter Jenkins, we're going to be releasing some footage of his water-fueled car that Malcolm's just been there to see and been working on. I've got some photos of it already that I'll show this week probably, and a bike as well. But yeah, he was another water-fueled car guy. There's just been so many, and at this point, everybody knows it. Everybody knows that they were suppressed or killed in some way. Everybody knows that Nikola Tesla wasn't an eccentric. I mean, he was eccentric in a way, but he wasn't talking crap. He really did make his discoveries this way, and his further discoveries, all of this stuff that we didn't get, is real, is true.
Well, I know
entirely possible from his theory.
I've got a Tesla Violet Ray machine here. It's astonishing. It's 100 years old. It's 100 years old, and it's incredible what it does. And there's no question. But it's, people don't realize that even films like The Bride of Frankenstein were actually anti-Tesla propaganda, creating this idea of a mad scientist. And then the fact that Tesla's been not taught in schools at all. And then I actually think that they named the Tesla car company that is a conspiracy to just, because most kids now think, you say Tesla, they think electric car, they don't think Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
And the search engines get filled up with Tesla cars when you search for that kind of thing. It's a very clever and stupid at the same time, the way that they work and try to hide this stuff. Yeah, it's there's a couple of other things I made note of just to unpack it a bit more. One of the things I really liked about the way you describe yourself is that you're an open source scientist, and I personally believe that open source is the way forward for everything. But when you mentioned Malcolm had some patents on a free energy device, now I personally think that this is what got people like Stanley killed, because they didn't open source stuff. What do you think about all of what I just said?
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. If Malcolm had tried to patent this without open sourcing it at the same time, then he probably would have just, it wouldn't have got patented. And he probably wouldn't have survived it, because that's what happens. He followed the method of Ken Shoulders, who at exactly the same time as patenting it, because you do need protection on this stuff. Otherwise, someone swoops immediately in and commercializes it, and they throw your open source claims out the window, and that has happened many times before as well. So it's a two-tiered thing, but he has open sourced everything along the way. He's not, it's been no holds barred. Whatever I've asked him, he's just told me. And yeah, he's put everything out there. Like, you can build the device, and I met 10 guys at Cosmic Summit who have built it themselves. One guy
that's where I'm coming to. I mean, Malcolm sounds amazing, and the fact that it's open source, just to explain again to the viewers, that's when everybody's able to, access the work and the science, and then go and build their own version of it. And there's a great video on your channel putting it into a 1955 Chevy, which has got different, it's an old engine. So this is really interesting. I know my next question was going to be. I know you're going to say that anyway, but next question is, how do we build one? Where do we get the plans from? And what does it cost? And what skill does it take?
Yeah, so I mean, it takes some skill in welding, or someone who can weld well, because the welding is moderately complicated. And if you do the 51.84 degree transitions, you do need to have some slight skill in metalwork. So that's where, I'm awaiting commercialization, like most people, to be able to buy that part eventually, because they should. I think Malcolm's spending over 10 grand a prototype to build them at the moment, because they're custom made, and he's making everyone slightly different, and they're doing everything by hand. But once they're mass produced, computerized, hopefully they shouldn't be too expensive. But you can build one if you can weld. Like, I know just 2 retired mechanics in Melbourne who helped Malcolm with some of the original prototypes, and I'm going to go down there eventually. It's like 5 hours away. I just haven't had time, but and film them making it up for the second version of the build guide. But you can follow my build guide on the channel now, which I released last year. And there's been a few updates since then. Like they made the pipes shorter to like 3 inches instead of 24 inches. But maybe people should build the old version anyway, because there's more plasmoids arcing out of the small one, so there's more chance of overcharging the device. So it's maybe even a bit safer to build the old one. But yeah, everything's up there. Every diagram, all the plans. You know, you're not going to find a spec sheet for a qualified engineer. I hope someone will be able to help me do that for the second one. There is a few people who've offered to be able to help. So yeah, await the build guide version 2 if you're unsure. But it's all up there if you want to watch my build guide video. Couple of things. You can build one for yourself, build one for a mate, do whatever you want with it, develop the technology, have fun with it. If you want to license it and do it in a big way, you know, start a company or selling them, then you will need to go and talk to Malcolm's commercial licensees. But otherwise, enjoy. It's there.
Well, no, I love this. I absolutely love it. Are you familiar with John White and the Spooky 2?
No. It's a good name. Oh no, yeah, no, I am familiar with. Yeah, I've played around with that.
So John has been on my channel about 5 times, and the reason I got hold of him is because I don't know, 20 years ago I was following a website where he was doing similar thing here. He was trying to get everybody to build a rife machine, basically, with parts that you could buy from Tandy.
I built one.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah,
oh, really?
with, you know, yeah, just electrical store parts with a rodent coil though. I used as my kind of emission device.
And then how did that go?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, you just don't want to play around. Like my dog actually got cancer, and I did try it out on her once. I probably shouldn't say this. I don't know if I'm not in the US. Can they do anything to me? Anyway, I did try it out, and actually a core came out of her cancer. But then I just got cold feet after that, and I was like, man, I don't want to mess around with technologies I don't, you know, fully understand yet, and kind of didn't do it. But yeah, I did try it out. Certainly, if you need to go, like if anyone does do this, and I'm not recommending that they do, but you want to go very, 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 very low millivoltages. You know, think what you pick up on an EEG scanner or like the electrical signals from the body. Sorry, not voltages, current. Very, very low current. Maybe low voltage as well, but yeah, don't go hard. Be gentle with the body.
Yeah, 100%. But the interesting thing about John White was that he had this open source project, put all the plans out there. I remember sitting in a cafe in Marrakesh in 2015 talking to a guy there who had this organic cafe, and we were both talking about it, gonna get the plans, gonna build it, and then all sorts of stuff happened. He passed on, and then when I started this channel, I looked it up again, and I found that he'd actually moved to China and was building the Spooky 2s and then building other things like this thing that I usually wear on my wrist, because so many people said, this is fantastic. Can you please build it for us? I mean, that's what happened. That's what happens.
I get messages all the time for building little random stuff like that. Once you put anything out there, they'll come after you because no one does this stuff, and it is kind of nerve-wracking to do it for yourself sometimes. You know, you are playing around with something very objective and specific when you're messing with frequency, right? Because it's like, you know, you're playing with 2 tuning forks. If they're not tuned the same, they won't resonate. Or you know, you can even kind of mess with the human body. Like you put lower frequencies through these rodent coils, for example, and you can feel it from like really quite far away. If you've got a magnet or a screw, they'll actually like, you know, levitate or jump around the room or kind of fly around a bit. And it's like you can feel, well, quite powerfully when you get the frequencies wrong.
That's a concerning thing with science that has been hidden from us.
Sorry, I've lost you again.
Sorry, have you disappeared? Have I disappeared?
Hello, internet.
Hello. Is that every time that happens? I was saying that's the problem with science that we don't understand because it's been hidden from us. It's a lot of rewiring that has to go in our heads before we can like actually go to use it ourselves, because we're still trying to wrap our heads around it. I mean, I've got a couple of really good friends living in Marrakesh now who were building a Tesla coil, it must be 15 years ago. And you know, and I followed their builds. They got people together. They were very naive at the beginning. They got infiltrated, and they did these builds together with groups of people over months. And it was interesting to see how much crap they got online because of it and how many attacks they got. But also, it was intriguing enough for me to find them and then drive 6 hours to meet them and actually see what they built, because they actually did build one. And, you know, I'll always support people that are trying to do this, because it's the future of humanity here. And it's fascinating to see what's going on in I call it the real world, whatever this hologram is, with you know, the RV. I mentioned the EVs at the beginning of this because, and by the way, if you're watching this and you're not sure about EVs or anything, there's a really good YouTube channel called Jeff Buys Cars, and Jeff's fully awake, and he started with a car channel, and then COVID happened, so he started telling people what was going on. And the EVs are a big part of all of this, because there were electric vehicles 100 years ago that had a 1,000-mile range. And when I was a kid, all our milk was delivered by electric vehicles, and that's half a century ago. So it's not like it's new technology, and people don't seem to understand. The people that buy them, they're sat on massive lithium batteries. Most people understand the sheer size of child labor that goes into getting these things out. But worse than that, you know, you've got a car, $100,000 car that does about 200 miles range. It's utterly ridiculous. They think they're protecting the environment, but they never ask where the electricity came from to go into the bloody thing. So, but the EV thing is I don't know about Australia, but it certainly seems to be falling apart here. The resale values are down through the floor. Nobody's buying them. People are sat on these bloody big batteries. Even the same people that know that putting one of these next to your head is no good, and they're sat on these. I think that's one of the big things that not many people talk about, is the EMF side of it. But what's been interesting, a couple of things interesting there is that Toyota, I think 1 or 2 years ago, their chairman or CEO stood up and said, right, we're dumping EVs, we're going full hydrogen cells. And then I think he had to resign, and then his replacement came back, and they expected him to continue with the EV narrative. And then he said, no, we're going full hydrogen cells. And that another interesting synchronicity for me is that I've been working a lot in the last couple of months with Brown's Gas. Have you heard of Brown's Gas?
Yeah.
So for the viewers, Brown's Gas is HHO, and it's like a supercharged hydrogen gas that it burns incredibly effectively. And there are people that have been putting HHO things like into engines, and it's inconclusive. I haven't decided whether I'm going to go down the road of actually getting one and just testing it for the channel, just out of interest. But then there's stuff like the Thunderbolt Generator coming along, and there's it's exciting that these things are happening and that these things are possible. Where are you at with the whole implementation of this kind of technology without massive fight back from the oil and the automotive and the cabal ultimately?
Look, I think like the commercialization of Thunderstorm Generator is a done deal. It's just at this stage is whether or not they just promote it as some kind of catalytic converter that solves a problem, or whether the mainstream becomes aware of the secret behind the technology. Because like I say, the secret behind the technology is the secret behind all technology. It's the secret behind electricity itself and all motion. And, you know, it's a model of physics and a way to also completely get rid of EMF as a thing by using the pathways of least resistance, you know, by harnessing form and function. You can't beat nature. It knows exactly what it's doing. God knows what he's doing. This is that, essentially, you know, the beauty of the mathematics that he uses to build the machine. And I know it gets a little bit hard for people to understand, but it's a language like where frequency, measurement, volume, weight, all of these ancient systems are unified into one consideration, and they become harmonics of each other. You know, you can literally map this as a musical scale. Man, I can't remember where I was going to go with it. That was too broad a statement. That's all right. It's getting too late.
No, it's late.
Okay. I got it. It's but this is all based on the number 9. What Marco Rodin's been going on about for 40 years. You know, vortex-based mass. And Malcolm came in at the very beginning of this, and he said, you know, in the Bible they say, you know, God meted out creation, you know, with the hills and the valleys by the span of his hand, and you know, a span is 9 inches. And then my wife was reading Srimad Bhagavatam, which is one of the Vedic text, and it said that Krishna's universal form, which is his metric for creation, Krishna being, the name for the all-attractive God in Sanskrit, it's 9 inches exactly. And then in the Baha'i scriptures that Marco was reading, it's 9 is the most holy number, and it's literally just scriptures about 9, just 9 is the basis of everything. And you find that all harmonic numbers revert to 9. It's just all of our first 9 numbers come from 9, and through just multiplication of 9, essentially, we get a full harmonic spectrum that maps our universe in terms of like the diameter of the sun, the distances between the planets, the circumference, the volume, just every single factor, the frequency of rotations, time itself, all divisions of time, all of this. So it's just, it's a model of physics that is so much deeper than the inventions themselves. And I think, that's why I don't even really kind of care what happens with the inventions sometimes. I just want people to understand that if we can harness this idea of the thunderstorm, creating a 0 point, a plane of equilibrium at the center, that 0 point, that's what we've been looking for, but we can't just make it. It's these 2 opposing forces, 2 opposing vortexes. Nature doesn't draw in straight lines, Malcolm says, and this is based on what Walter Russell said as well. And Ken Wheeler says something really similar. Nature doesn't draw it in straight lines. All lines are curved. All curves are part of a spiral. All spirals are either counterclockwise exploding or clockwise imploding, or, contracting and expanding. This is everything breathing in and out, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's beautiful. It's elegant.
It is. It's so elegant. That's what ended my physics career. They'd spent 4 or 5 years teaching us that light traveled in straight lines, and I got up and did a presentation. No, this is a true story. I got up and gave a presentation proving that light doesn't travel in straight lines, in my opinion. And the teacher was like, "That's not what it says in the book. I'm going to give you an F." And I went, "Oh, piss off!" And I walked out. That was the end of that for me, and that was the beginning of me going, "Okay, this is all bullshit." I'm gonna
man. You saved yourself a lot of undoing mentally.
Well, I was very keen on it all.
It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
I know.
What they're teaching. I know no one likes me saying it, but it's absolute bullshit.
It's total bullshit, and that's what I enjoy being a dad. Actually, trying to fight against that brainwashing. By being the eccentric dad, and they eventually come around to at least
later in life,
at least looking into these things. That's the key.
Yeah, they know about them. They know about them. Then it's up to sovereign choice, but you've given them the opportunity.
Yeah, but that's why I think you're doing important work, and I'm really happy to support this kind of thing. It'd be great if you could maybe pick 4 or 5 things, like you've mentioned some Vedic text there. If you could send me some links to put under the video for people to get a bit deeper into this stuff, that would be great. Would you be able to do that?
Yeah, sure thing. There's one I'll send you. I can send you my presentation from Cosmic Summit, the PowerPoint, and that's a really good guide to all of the maths that I just railed off there, where it'll give you a good example of some of these older systems of measurement and time, and how that all correlates with frequency, planetary movements, and stuff like that. So that could be a good reference. It's got all of those things in there as well, so people can kind of span out and go look at some of the references if they like.
Well, I do think we're all, everybody in the world is time poor. Everybody has like an intellectual bank account that they can draw upon at any time, but it's finite in terms of what we understand as time at the moment. But with the last 4 years, the best thing for me is that we've all had to go back to school to some degree and relearn everything about science, physics, biology, the universe, the nature of reality, food, everything. Right? It's actually really exciting time, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we're kind of just continuing on with that 1800s vibe, where they were looking at form and function, and we saw all these kind of more wacky scientists that actually did things kind of come out. So I think we're seeing a resurgence of that now. There's no stopping it. Maybe it won't be us, but it's going to be someone very soon, if not us, because this is the real deal.
Yeah, it's great, and it's all about synchronicity, because I just remembered another random video popped up this morning when I woke up about Back to the Future 2, and I was thinking about Emmett Brown, and those films are actually packed with information about time travel and where we're at the moment. But
Yeah.
it all connects, everything connects. I want to finish up on just asking you a bit about yourself. You said you're a farmer. But you have an extremely adept understanding of science by the sounds of it. What was your journey? How did you get to this point?
Well, I was kind of just, one of those lost boys who floated around for a while, and yeah, then I started an organic farm with my wife Emma, and yeah, just a lot, to be able to do something with my hands, something positive, something that didn't have a negative impact on the world, which is kind of hard to find that many jobs. So we wanted to be self-employed and, live off grid and kind of do all of that. So that's ticked all those boxes. And then I'm kind of like an addict to audiobooks. I just, I listen to audiobooks all day if I can. And it's becoming less and less because I'm doing so much more research now. But when I was just farming, that's all I did, for like 6-7 years. And yeah, just read such a vast range of stuff, and went back to all of those 1800s scientists. Like, it kind of started with Wilhelm Reich and Nikola Tesla, and then yeah, very quickly found Ken Wheeler on YouTube. It was Theoria Apophasis is his channel, and he really built on top of Walter Russell's and Nikola Tesla and Oliver Heaviside, and he essentially brought back the ether, and he was very adamant about it. And he's copped an enormous amount of criticism. There's like a website, kenwheeleriswrong.com, and he's taken the brunt of it, to be honest, of bringing back the ether. And now we're kind of continuing that mission. But alchemy as well. Obviously transmutation. That's why I got interested in the Thunderstorm Generator, is because I saw that there was a method, and it was it's quite finesse, much more fine than chemistry. You keep things at 38 degrees for 40 days, and you're treating everything like an organic life form, which it is, down to electricity and circuits and all of this. We live in a medium that is alive, and is in constant motion, and is constantly replicating through this bonding of masculine and feminine. It's pretty crazy. So that was kind of my journey into it. I just saw links between the work of all of these researchers, because I think you guys, you've all been building up for the last, however, 10, 20, 30, some people I know since the 60s, some of the, the physicists and shamans that I've studied under and have been banging this out and telling people since the 60s. And I think I just saw there's this wealth of information. Randall Carlson alone has, retaught sacred geometry as essentially like a Pythagorean school science. That's all there. People can go and learn it. They're just not doing it. So, I attempted to just try and condense all of that. And that's my mission. I'm a condenser. I just want to communicate what all of these geniuses, have kind of come up with over the last 40 years, probably starting with Marco Rodin was the big one, where I realized I could translate this guy. And people aren't understanding him. And the people who do just go and, lock up his work essentially and use it for, and that's happened so many times. It's not funny. He's the most uncredited man.
What's his name?
On the earth. Marco Rodin, the mathematician.
R-O-D.
Vortex Space Maths.
Marco. Oh, it disappeared. You there? You back?
Oh, we've cut off again.
You back? Hello? Can you hear me, Jordan?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah, Marco Rodin. How do you spell Rodin?
R-O-D-I-N.
And what was the title of the work that you said people should look up?
That's vortex-based maths.
Vortex-based. Oh God, come on, bloody homework.
It's fun maths, I dropped out of maths in like year 9 or something, but this is fun maths. Just the first
Well,
9
that's
numbers.
a good thing. All of this is fun, and it's great watching those videos with you guys and Malcolm doing the demonstrations, because it just, I sat watching them with a big grin on my face, because it is just like, we're the crazy
fun.
guys putting this stuff together in our sheds and making this happen. And that's what it takes. I mean, you know, you said this work from Randall Carlson, Marco Rodin exists. It's all there. It's just people have got to go and find it. And where we're at the moment is we're fighting against 17 years minimum of propaganda, indoctrination, bullshit at a place that they laughingly call school. So, you know, it's not just the learning, it's the undoing and letting go of these ideas to actually go, right, we've got to start understanding this stuff. I mean, it's wonderful, wonderful work that you're all doing. Apart from your YouTube channel, which is, I can't remember what you call it, Alchemical Science, isn't it? That's your channel?
That's the one, Alchemical Science, youtube.com/Alchemical Science.
Where anywhere else people can find your work at the moment?
Not really. I'm on X, but I'm not very active, so probably just YouTube, unfortunately. Oh no, I am on Rumble as well. I'm on Rumble.
Good. I was going to say, because you know you run the risk of being banned on YouTube at some point, as multiple times. So you should definitely have backup channels.
Yeah, no, I am on Rumble, and I'm gonna be on X soon as well. I've just discovered that you can upload longer videos there. So
if you get the blue check, you can release really long videos, and that's the only reason I got it actually. And you do seem to get bigger coverage there, so it's important to keep pushing the message out, because it's important work.
It is.
Yeah. So thank you for your time this evening, joining me after dinner. I'm off to have lunch now, and I hope you have a great weekend.
No, absolute pleasure. Thanks for chatting, Mark.
Yeah, and come back and update me on any developments. It'd be great to share them with my audience.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm sure there'll be a lot going on by the next few months.
Thanks a lot, Jordan. Take care. God bless you.
See ya.
Bye.